People don't trust their politicians, but they think they'll get stuff done, so they vote for them anyway. Well, this is what a new article from The Hill seems to posit on the reason for Trump winning. The article is titled, "Post-Election Polling Suggests a New Reason Behind Trump's Victory." In the wake of the 2024 election that saw Democrats lose, there have been multiple theories as to why voters were less responsive to Democrats' messaging. New polling by our firm, Schoen Cooperman Research, in partnership with George Washington University's Grad School of Political Management, likely provides the clearest explanation. Our poll, the first post-election poll specifically focused on trust in government, reveals that while voters are less trusting of the government as a result of the election, they believe the government will be more effective and can get things done. Yeah, I mean, those two things aren't mutually exclusive. You can admit that the person you're voting for is someone who is not trustable, that you wouldn't want them to babysit your daughter, but also think that they are a fighter and good with legislation, that they produce good executive orders, that they appoint competent people to their cabinets. So this is something that sort of makes sense. Put another way, our poll suggests that Democrats ran the wrong campaign. Whereas they ran a values campaign focused on a government Americans could trust, what voters really wanted was an effective government, and on that, they preferred Donald Trump. Indeed, we found that a plurality, 39% of Americans, said the 2024 election results made them less trusting of the government. Similarly, a 41% plurality of Americans say the election makes them less confident that the government will share, quote, fair and accurate information. And yet a plurality, 40% of Americans, believe the government will be more effective at getting things done going forward, versus 36% of Americans saying that the government will be less effective. So you got to be effective, or at least you got to be perceived as being effective. Something that comes to mind when we talk about this is that the Democrats didn't really do much to help their chances at being perceived as effective. They were not experts at going around and touting some of their accomplishments, some of the stuff that they got done. Biden and his bipartisan legislation, compare that with Trump and his legislation, the tax cuts bill, which was only voted for by Republicans in Congress. Whereas Biden gets this infrastructure bill, this American Rescue Plan, narrowly in the Senate. Now that was mostly just Democrats. The Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS and Science Act. And did Kamala Harris really talk about that legislation? Not that much. So among independents, the discrepancy is even more pronounced, underscoring this voting bloc's desire for an effective government over one that is trustworthy. By a 13-point margin, 39% to 26%, independents said that they are less rather than more trusting of government after the election. And by a similar 11-point margin, 39% to 28%, they feel less rather than more confident that the government will share fair and accurate information going forward. However, at the same time, by a 10-point margin, 39% to 29%, independents believe the Trump administration will be more effective at getting things done going forward. The 23-point difference between independents' net trust in a second Trump administration, minus 13, and their optimism that his administration will be more effective than Biden-Harris, plus 10, is significant. In the context of this election, this gap reveals that while the electorate at large, and particularly independents, are distrusting of a Trump administration, a considerable percentage were able to overlook that in favor of a government that they felt would get things done. What could be called cautious optimism for the Trump administration was also found in a recent poll by CNN. Okay, so cautious optimism. People who are saying, yeah, I don't trust this, but I feel like he's going to get more stuff done than the last administration. There's a lot of ways to look at this, but I think the best way to view them, their belief that he'll get more stuff done, is the idea that, okay, he's talked more of a game on inflation. He's talked more of a game on high prices. And Biden and Harris have talked about it being bad, but they haven't really fully remedied it within their term. And that's not to say that they didn't do things that might have helped, but we did not see the effects of that within their term. People think, well, I mean, I guess the Democrats just don't do anything about this problem, and I want someone who's going to solve the problem, so I'm going to vote for Trump. He's effective. He'll get stuff done. I don't trust him. He's corrupt. He commits crimes, but he's going to get stuff done. This is a pretty interesting poll and pretty interesting to look at. What do you think of these findings? Let me know in the comments. Do you think that Trump is trustworthy? Do you think that Trump is effective? Because, yeah, I feel like at this point, even people who voted for Trump, you know, and this bear this is out, have to admit the guy is corrupt. The guy speaks falsehoods on the daily. And he's not unique in that regard. I mean, other politicians are corrupt. Other politicians frequently lie. But with Trump, it's like actually more than the usual. Like the amount of false and pants on fire fact checks he has on his PolitiFact profile, and some of his corruption, you know, with Jared Kushner in Saudi Arabia, it's just, you know, it blows out of the water some of the Bush League, no pun intended, corruption of past administrations and of other both Republican and Democratic politicians. But he talks a good game. He's a talented speaker. He's got charisma. He knows how to frame things. He knows how to talk tough and go after people and bash the system and say that the system has failed Americans. And that's enough to get him over the finish line, even with all of his other baggage, apparently. So yeah, if you liked this video or found it insightful, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video.